I want to talk to you a little bit about the frontal lobe, which is the behavioral, personality, and also the inhibitory area of the brain. It's responsible for impulse control. And let's start out at the level of the Sylvian fissure, which looks a little bit like a centipede or a caterpillar right there. There are the antennae of the caterpillar. There you see the body of the caterpillar going back, and here's the tail. Now, just above that, we've got the inferior frontal gyrus and the inferior frontal sulcus. Now, if there's an inferior one, there must be a superior one, right? Well, here's the inferior one. Let's draw over it, the inferior frontal sulcus. And if we kept going and we scrolled inward and we weren't volume averaging against the direction of the sulcus, we would see another one, the middle sulcus, and then another one above that, the superior sulcus. We'll see these in the coronal projection much better. Now, sometimes the middle one is divided up into two parts. There are two sulci creating a couple of lobes of the middle component, or the middle gyrus of the frontal lobe. But I'm going to focus on the inferior portion of the frontal lobe, namely the inferior sulcus and the inferior gyrus. Just below it is going to be the Sylvian fissure, and just below that is the temporal lobe. So we are dividing up the frontal lobe from the temporal lobe. To find the entire temporal lobe, you've got to go up and back to the central sulcus of Rolando. And I'm going to help you find the central sulcus of Rolando right now. So let's take the inferior frontal sulcus and follow it back. And here's this staircase descending structure. Often these two don't communicate with each other. But here you see it kind of descending like a little staircase right here. And right behind it is the precentral gyrus. So precentral sulcus, pointed to by this structure, precentral gyrus. Yes, there is a little small sulcus inside that. The precentral gyrus is always going to be bigger than the postcentral gyrus. The precentral gyrus and the postcentral gyrus are separated by the central sulcus of Rolando. The central sulcus of Rolando, up and back, separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. There's some of the parieto-occipital sulcus separating the parietal lobe from the occipital lobe. Now let's go back to the frontal lobe, and if we look very carefully, we have created along the top of these antennae, here is the anterior horizontal ramus and anterior ascending ramus of the Sylvian fissure. Right above that, the letter M. I'm going to draw the M right here, just so you can see it. Here is M, or maybe a heart if you want to have extreme imagination. And that is the area known as Broca's area, specifically in the back. Now, the front part is called the pars orbitalis. It's going to abut the orbital gyri. This is Brodmann 47. The pars triangularis, yes, it is triangular, well named in the middle, Brodmann 45. The pars opercularis, or opercula, is in the back, which is the start of the frontal operculum. This is Brodmann 44. Officially Brodmann 44 and Brodmann 45 in the dominant hemisphere, which is usually on the left side, forms Broca's area. Now let's go back to the central sulcus for a minute. Here it is. Here's the central sulcus, and work our way towards the midline. You're going to see how hard it is to follow it continuously all the way back. We're still following it, and we've got it. It's this little oblique slit that is found just anterior to this structure right here, which is composed of the cingulate sulcus and the supramarginal or marginal sulcus right here. So once you find this long, stringy sulcus that goes into the cingulum, right in front of that, the oblique, dark area seen anterior to it is the central sulcus of Rolando in the midline.